Your support helps us bring you programs you love. Go to wyomingpbs.org, click on Support, and become a sustaining member or an annual member. It's easy and secure. Thank you.
Main Street, Wyoming is made possible in part by grants from Kennecott Energy, proud to be a part of Wyoming's future in the uranium exploration, mining, and production industry, and by the Wyoming Council for the Humanities, enriching lives of Wyoming people through the study of Wyoming history, values, and ideas.
Every summer, under the cottonwoods along the Little Wind River, teepees and tents are erected and Arapaho children gather to learn the traditional ways of their tribe. Their lessons in beading and bow making, their storytelling and Arapaho language sessions, shinny games, which my shins can attest to, and a lot of fun, splashing in the river on a hot day. Among the teachers you'll find there is Richard Moss, and at nearby Wyoming Indian schools, Ambrose Brown. Today on Main Street, they're going to talk to us about some of the traditional arts that they're keeping alive. Richard will be talking about making of a traditional drum, while Ambrose works on a war bonnet. Once that work is done, we'll get a look at the end results. Also with us today is Merle Haas, a curriculum and computer specialist at Wyoming Indian Schools, who has been designing the Arapaho Language and Culture program at the schools. Welcome to Main Street. Richard, let's start talking about the business of making a traditional drum.
Okay, make a drum today. It's not as simple as you see here, as well as this big drum here. It's not like what we have here to that or to that. It's quite take time to make one, especially to that or to this. First, you gotta know what animal, what hide of an animal you're going to use, whether it be elk, deer, or moose. That's the animal you're going to look for. And to get it to get the hide to this, there's a lot of work to it. You scrape the hide, take the meat off, fat, whatever, on one side, turn it around, stake it down, and remove the hair. And then you clean everything up on both sides as to what this is. Set it aside, and then you have to work on the rim. This is just from a snare drum of the modern type, just cutting sections for that use. So that's just handy there. But to make one, start from a cottonwood, work down to a certain thickness, and so long to have the ends meet. You either tie them together with sinew or rawhide. Or wooden pegs to hold the two together. To dry that out, you set it on the ground and put pegs here to keep the round shape. Now that's drying. So that takes, maybe you're on your third week to that part. When everything's ready, you re-soak this. You had this drying out while you're making this. Re-soak the hide, and when it's ready, then you're ready to cover the rim, as you see here. What you do is cut out what you need to go just over the edge of the rim here. To go over, then you cut out the strips from the rest of to bead it here all the way around, as you see on this one. Not to, be careful not to stretch it too tight.
What are you soaking the hide in? What have you soaked
Water.
in? Mm-hmm.
Water. We're soaking the hide in water. So when that's ready, you'll know when it's ready, real soft and everything. Then you get to this one. That's what you're doing now, back then, and then cutting those strips out. And at first, this place here, around the edges of the, you cut holes here and there all the way around, as you'll see on these parts here. Then you get it and tie it together and then get like it done here. Then you put these cross pieces on. Okay, that's another strip of rawhide. Where you go here and tip here and come on here and then tie that there. Okay, some will wrap some cloth around or buckskin to make the. Of course, this is hard buckskin, so that's why they wrap it on that, so they can hold it more comfortably. And that's the finished part. If you want to paint, you may. So these drums are used for social dancing, and there are drums of the same type that are used for medicine. Oh, those medicine men have drums of that. So there's two uses for the tribe. Any tribe has those. And this is for the group singing. They have this type here, the drum. This is what you call beading in Arapaho, DBT. They both sides. And that's all I have to say about drum making.
No.
It's quite lengthy, but I just cut this down that short. Also, drumstick making is another art in itself.
I'm just holding this up so we can get a better look at it. Is this style of drum making done the same way now as it was done generations ago, or has it evolved?
Well, the part here, the cylinder, was made out of hollowed out cottonwood trees of that size. They hollow out the cottonwood trees and dried up to where they won't crack on you, you know. And there is one drum out there that's made that way. And,
made from a hollowed out cottonwood.
Yeah. And same way this one here, you know, cottonwood, a small tree, maybe about like so. They used to use the big willow, but we don't have those around much. Just the young stuff now growing. But back when I was a boy, they used to have quite a bit of those along where we were, you know. So my dad and uncle used to cut those down and work them down to about that thick, you know, and then kind of narrow them down to kind of sharpness to have them meet and tie them with a rawhide or whatever.
And did you learn this technique from your father?
Yeah, I just watched them. I just more or less learned by watching on. Nobody actually showed me how to make these. By watching on, I catch on. And then what the old fellas told me about these type of things, I just remember those, you know, why they made them and why they have to have them, and as well as this here.
Well, let's come back to that, but for a moment, let's see what Ambrose has here and talk a little bit about the making of a war bonnet, which is what we have the materials for in front of us. And Ambrose, if you want to speak in Arapaho, we'll keep Dickie at work or keep Richard at work translating. So, tell us a little bit about the process of making a war bonnet.
If maybe long ago you'd have to go after eagle or whatever they used. Then plumes. Then the feathers here. I knew if I made a eagle one, I'd have to use tail feather for the front. Then you can tell these wings which way they go, like this. That goes to the right. Find some here that there's, no, that's right too. I got different, the ones that go to right and left. That's the ones you pick. I think you put 36 on here. And when you first start, here's the way it is. And I'd have to straighten it up, heat it up, straighten it up like that. After it cools off, it'll be like these here. Yeah, and get a knife and cut the bottom. See, that's inside. Here's the outside. I cut the inside to here, clean it up. Then I turn this back to where I cut it. I put it back in there.
Mhm.
Then sew it up here, tack it on there,
Uh-huh.
all of them.
And
Then
that,
when I get through, I'll get that balloon here. Just hold it on the outside. Then get your yarn tied up with it. Here it is. That's the way it'll look.
mhm.
All right, I'm not through with this here. It'll take me maybe a week to. Then I have to I got this red here. That's where it's going to go.
Uh-huh.
But I'm going to use a glue. And then this I cut maybe like that to put on here with this. But it won't be that much. It'll be just maybe like that.
Mhm.
That's what's going to go on there, on the end of it. Then I got a bunch of these. I have to get a buckskin, run through every one.
Mhm.
Then the first one, maybe I start from the back. Now this hat here, I took everything off. Then I cut half inch off.
Oh, did you actually cut the brim off a hat to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it could have been even, but I took half inch off here.
Uh-huh.
So that's where the feathers kind of go down like this.
Okay.
Both sides. Then we'll still have to get somebody to beat a headband, about 7 inch and about 1.5 inch. We'll sew it on here.
Uh-huh.
So you put it on, be right on your forehead here. Then maybe get a couple weasel, white ones,
Mhm.
put on there. Maybe ribbons or whatever, different colors. That'll be it, I guess, whenever I get through with this. A lot of them will, after it's through, they'll get a brighter color, maybe yellow, maybe 3, 4 plumes put inside here. See, this be all open here,
Uh-huh.
but this be closed here. It'd be leaning here, but this be open. And after I straighten them up there, get them all up there, and I have to cut this inside here.
Mhm.
Put another roll of buckskin all the way around. And that's where I'll set it here. If I set it loose, it'll all open here.
Mhm.
But this be against this here. That's where. Then I still have to get headband for it. And I guess that'll be all of it.
Well, that-
Beside-
Traditionally, making war bonnets and making drums, every step had significance. There were certain ways of doing things. And I guess I'm wondering in modern times, as people work on these sorts of things and as you teach younger people to use them, how much do they understand about the traditional background? Merle, maybe I should ask you this, since you're developing a program in the schools. Are young people aware of the history and the significance of some of the steps of producing these kinds of things?
I think more so in the high school, because Richard is the instructor there. With the primary grades, you know, they're with the time that they have, I think they get 15 minutes a day toward language and culture. And so, you know, there's not that much time to really, you know, to really show them a lot of these traditional crafts. We've been able to do that at the language camps.
Yeah.
But as far as, you know, like in the schools, you know, with the young people, well, it's just, you know, our major focus is the language and the cultural part of it. The cultural activities, they complement the language. And
What about at home? Are kids getting any kinds of instruction like this in the home, or do they need to come to Richard or to Ambrose for that?
I think that probably there should be more happening in the home. But one of the problems right now, as far as tribal people trying to maintain some of the traditional crafts and the language, is that there's been a breakdown in the extended family relationships. You have more younger people, you know, getting married and going out and living by themselves, so that some of the link with these type of things, with the past, that they could get from grandparents or uncles and aunts. Well, they're not in the home, and it's like that with a lot of families. But I think, I like to believe that there are, people in the homes that are passing these traditional ways down.
Richard, how do you find young people respond when you're teaching drum making, when you're teaching language? How excited are young members of the tribe to learn some of these things that they may not have, in fact, learned at home?
Some of the students will already know, like beading and so forth, through their mothers, like the young girls. Now the young boys may be the first time for them, such as making a war bonnet, making a drum, or doing beadwork of other things. A lot of those things, it's the first time for them. Getting those from the home, I think it's not there that I know of in some places that you have to pass these on to. So if the parents do not know these parts, it's just that they didn't have that back there in their time as when they were young kids going to school, learning these things. Some do, but I think a major part of the population of the kids don't know these things.
And you describe learning by watching, watching your relatives and your parents, and I guess I'm wondering how much time one would need to learn I mean, you do beading, you do drum work, you sing. There's a great deal to learn there, and it seems to me it would take a great deal of time.
The way I learned by watching on is that way I remember to do exactly what the man was doing and fixing a drum. And I didn't say watch on, watch carefully this is how you do it. I was just watching on when I was younger. And I caught on, and there was a time when I wanted to make a drum, so I went by that procedure. And I may not have done a good job, and by that I learned what to correct and make adjustments on. And after that, well, the way I wanted the drum to sound is just how I put it together.
Right.
But if you're going to put the drum together just by what you see and then go like that, then you know you've done something wrong.
Yeah.
And then you make your own adjustment, correction of what might have happened. And if you stretch it too tight, then it's going to be like a little tin can, sounding like. You won't have that sound of what you want there. But you have to be careful how you make these drums to that or to this here.
It seems to me that all those things require enormous patience. You have to test, you have to try things.
Yeah.
And I wonder, again, in today's world with television and all the distractions that we have, whether young people are approaching it that way. Do you have any sense from the schools?
Yeah, I think that it seems like the youth have a different form of expression that comes with their music and even the way they talk, and growing up, I think one of the first things, that I had to learn was to listen. But then with my own children, it's a lot different. They're more expressive with how they talk to me, and I think that some of these traditional values that were passed down through the stories and stories associated with learning these traditional the values associated with the language, I think those need to be taught more in the home. And one of the frustrations that the children have is that they are learning the language in the schools. They go home, but their parents, they don't know what they're saying.
Yeah.
And so you'll have parents coming back to school. I don't know what my child is saying to me in Arapaho.
Maybe the grandparents do, but not the parents.
Right, but then a lot of times the grandparents, are not in the home, and so it's kind of frustrating for the children.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that in an era when the language of commerce and so many other things might be English, that the Arapaho would make such an effort to keep alive these traditional arts and to keep alive the language. Can you say what are you trying to do there?
Okay, I think 6 years ago when I was asked by the Arapaho Language Culture Commission and the Arapaho Business Council to observe that first year at the language camp, I was in attendance at a meeting where the elders were speaking, and they were talking about how they felt very sad about the young children not speaking the language, because they felt that the language should be there with the lives of the people. And I think their major concern, and I can remember the elders crying because they said we go into our ceremonies and it's all English. We are Arapaho people. We should be speaking our language. We should be passing this language on to our children, because that is what makes us Arapaho. And at that time, and I feel that a lot of that same attitude, or that same way of looking at that, is still there with the elders, with the parents. They're that is where we have sort of the missing link, because we have, even myself, I can understand the language fairly well, but now I have to start speaking it.
Well, at this point, I think we're going to listen to a little bit to the language itself, and also to the songs that have been handed down through generations to Richard. Richard, you've told us about the process of making a drum. Now I think it's time to hear what the drum sounds like in use. So if you could do a song for us, and maybe explain first a little bit about the song you're going to do.
Okay, back some years ago, my father and my uncles used to sing some stuff by using this drum, what they call small drums, doing the singing songs maybe for round dance, rabbit dance, and owl dance. Now there are songs for the rabbit dance and owl dance. More for round dance, now they use the big drum. And that time, my dad and the group of us, I was singing with them by that time, back in the early 70s. So we had went to a dance and never was called on. So my dad said, well, we'll come to the next dance. If they don't call on us, then we'll quit. They don't need us anymore. They don't need this kind of dance anymore. Maybe things are changing. Things are getting more modern. Today, now the dance holds nothing but the competitive dancing, like fancy dance, traditional. All that time, maybe once in a while they'll get the big drum to do a round dance. And that's it. No more of this. They nudged it out of the powwow system.
So the rabbit dance and the owl dance, they're not done anymore?
None, no more, no more. Songs are still here. Drums like this are still here, but no interest in that anymore.
Are the songs likely to die out at this point, since they're not being used at powwows?
They will be as time goes on. Maybe I know them. Maybe some guys somewhat a little younger than I know them. Otherwise, the kids don't know them. Maybe my kids don't know the songs. That age, that generation. The younger generation don't know nothing about it.
Well, let's hear a song now while we still can.
Singing the rabbit dance song or owl dance song, and I'll sing that. That's the songs that they had, maybe different songs, you know, not this, but different songs. That's the time they had used for rabbit dance and all that. Now those, at that time back there, they were the favorite dance for the people. They used to have about 2-3 rings around the hall, and that was really popular at that time. But for some reason, they just notched it out. Didn't want it anymore.
And do people still know how to do the dance as well as
The
song?
older people, like my parents, that age, maybe to my age, they're the ones that know. But you try to teach younger children, but they have one heck of a time trying to get on to the steps.
Is the owl song the same as the rabbit song or a different song?
That's the same. That's the same song. Same song, yeah. It's just that it's a different step. The owl dance, more like a waltz, maybe exactly like a waltz, where you waltz that type of step for the owl dance.
Is there any effort to bring back those dances and have them?
It would
performed?
be up to the younger generation whether they want it or don't want it. It's up to them. We can teach them, but for them to get it, they'd have to go for it, learn it.
Thanks for joining us, Richard. And thank you for joining us on Main Street, Wyoming.
Main Street, Wyoming is made possible in part by grants from Kennecott Energy, proud to be a part of Wyoming's future in the uranium exploration, mining,